Breaking tonight, President-elect Donald Trump close to some key decisions about the team that will lead America to its historic comeback. Hello and welcome to Justice. I'm Judge Jeanine Pirro, live in our nation's capital, Washington, D.C. Thanks for being with us. You can actually see the Capitol building behind me. It's where our country's president-elect toured just 2 days ago on his whirlwind visit here. Tonight, the transition is underway, and we're told Mr. Trump is close to making some major appointments, including who will serve right here in Washington as his chief of staff. The decision is said to be imminent. Trump's transition communications director, Jason Miller, is standing by live to talk about it. But first, my opening statement. At 10:32 a.m. today, I received a phone call from President-elect Donald J. Trump, who has known me since my time as a county judge and elected district attorney. He stated that he looks forward to beginning the process of making America great again, and he thanks Justice and all her viewers for their support. I am honored to have had the privilege to speak with both the president-elect and his beautiful wife, future First Lady Melania, as America embarks on this very special journey. And indeed, it's been one amazing, wild, unpredictable ride. And you've been with me the whole time. Thank you for that. Now, I told you from the beginning to strap in that it would be a revolution. Indeed, it was. Yes, there's an insurrection coming. From the beginning, we knew this would be a political revolution. Be careful, boys. Be very, very careful. You don't want to make this a different kind of revolution. I told you this election was a revolution, but even I didn't know how big it would be. It's worldwide. What happened in England is going to happen again. Next stop, the United States. Next president, Donald J. Trump. And within the first moment of President-elect Donald Trump's victory speech, he showed how elegant he was by congratulating Hillary Clinton.
She congratulated us. It's about us on our victory. And I congratulated her and her family on a very, very hard-fought campaign. I mean, she fought very hard. Hillary has worked very long and very hard over a long period of time. And we owe her a major debt of gratitude for her service to our country. I mean that very sincerely.
And not surprisingly, he reached out to Mitt Romney and spoke with Jeb Bush and John Kasich, Republicans who worked hard against him, as well as offering to be a president to all, even those who violently opposed him. And as for the campaign itself, they told you you didn't matter, that if you supported him, you were probably uneducated, small-minded, and irrelevant. You were beneath them. That if you wanted closed borders, a nation state, you weren't Christian enough, not American enough, not big-hearted enough. That if you didn't see racism in every cop who walked the beat, you probably were a racist yourself. That if you used the term Muslim jihadist instead of terrorist, you were an anti-religious bigot. Truth and honesty had no place in their politically correct society. If you opposed sanctuary cities where the protection of illegal criminal immigrants was the law, you were a hateful, bigoted xenophobe. They simply knew better than you. They tried to convince you that Obamacare was great, when all the time your deductible and premiums were skyrocketing, that the economy wasn't that bad, yet you had to work 2 and 3 jobs to just get along. Jobs that shipped overseas didn't matter to them because they were part of the global economy. She even called you deplorable, irredeemable, and not America. If you didn't support her, you probably hated women and were backward. They tried to convince you that a lie wasn't a lie if it came from her mouth. And the media, so corrupt that they shared debate questions with her to give her the edge, tried to beat you down by repeatedly telling you it was useless to even show up at the polls. And even though the President of the United States did his very best on the eve of the election to trash him and mock him as a joke and unfit, bringing out Jay-Z and Springsteen, Beyonce and Gaga, it didn't matter. And in spite of it all, even though we felt forgotten, alone, and beaten down, we all came home. Because this wasn't an election, it was a revolution. We came home to where our forefathers, in their genius, had always planned. Back to America. Back to who we are. Back to the Constitution. And yes, Mr. Soon-to-be ex-President Obama, we can now proudly cling to guns, our religion, and now our new president-elect, Donald J. Trump. And that's my open. Tell me what you think on my Facebook page or Twitter. Hashtag Judge Jeanine. And joining me now here in Washington, D.C. is Jason Miller, the communications director and the President-elect Trump's transition team member. All right. Good evening, Jason.
Good evening. What a great time to be alive.
Indeed, indeed. Now, we understand that the decision is coming soon as to who will be the President-elect's chief of staff. And we're hearing that Reince Priebus, who's the head of the RNC, as well as Steve Bannon, the campaign CEO, and the CEO of Breitbart are in the running. What can you tell us?
Well, in a perfect dodge, I will go right to the fact that we know whoever the President-elect is going to pick, it'll be somebody very good. He has excellent judgment. He surrounds himself with the best people. He knows what the task is at hand, that we need to go forward and implement these campaign promises with repealing and replacing Obamacare, securing our border, and whoever he puts in those top leadership positions will be top-notch people who are ready to lead this country forward.
Now, if it's one or the other, if it's Reince or if it's Steve Bannon, do you think that both of them will end up being in the administration?
Both played critical roles on the campaign, with Chairman Priebus running the RNC and Steve Bannon doing a fantastic job as the campaign CEO. I'd also mention that Kellyanne Conway being the first woman
I was going to get to Kellyanne.
To manage a presidential race, or a successful presidential race. Very historic, and she did a fantastic job. And really, we had a great team all the way top to bottom. Really powerful people who spoke their mind, who knew how to get things done. I think it was a big part of the reason we're able to build the support structure around the president-elect.
But do you think that both Reince and Steve would both be in the White House with the president?
I know the president-elect respects both of their counsels, and I think you'll see he'll continue to respect.
All right, so
both
let's talk about Kellyanne Conway, the first woman to actually run a successful presidential campaign. I mean, the woman had like a Midas touch. She was able to go in there from the summer going forward, and she had a tough job. I mean, she had to communicate. She had to make sure that the president-elect stayed on message, and she did a terrific job. Where is she going to be in this administration? And will she be with the president-elect?
I think she'll be probably wherever she wants to be. I think the president-elect very much respects her counsel and her opinion, not just as a campaign spokesperson, but I think as a sounding board and someone who has a lot of ideas on how to implement this vision. And that's one of the things that, as people start to talk about the untold stories of the campaign, is really how well everybody got along. How everyone was singularly focused on Mr. Trump's vision and what we had to do. And even, I'll tell you this about Kellyanne, even in the toughest days we had on the campaign, never once wavered, never once blinked, always focused, always firmly believed that we were going to get the win. And I can tell you, even behind the scenes, never once faltered. And so very impressive job by her and really the entire team.
You know, Jason, it was a tough campaign. I mean, between the media and everything coming at you. I mean, even the Pope came after you guys. I mean, it was just unbelievable. And yet there was always this conviction that it was going to happen. And you had a candidate who worked 24/7. I mean, I know the man. I mean, the man he just doesn't tire. There was never a moment when people said, my God, this isn't going to happen?
No. I mean, there was really this firm belief among everyone on the campaign team. It didn't matter if it was Steve Bannon at the top or if it was the folks who were walking precincts, that this was a candidate who was going to win this race. And I think as you saw Mr. Trump on the campaign trail, the tens of thousands, 20,000 that we had in Tampa that would show up for these campaign rallies and these speeches that he would give. And I think that's something that he really didn't get enough credit for on the campaign trail, was how powerful of a speaker he was and the way that there was something going on. And I will tell you that even all the data that we were looking at, we knew that Pennsylvania, that we had a shot, but we knew it would be tough. The person who most believed that we were going to win Pennsylvania was Donald J. Trump. And he said, guys, you're missing it. There's something big that's going on here. We have to get back over and over. And the way that people would show up to these rallies and just show their enthusiasm, it was, pick the greatest speakers of all time, whether it's, Winston Churchill or Ronald Reagan. Donald Trump was right there as far as the motivating figure.
And that's almost contrary to what a lot of these pollsters would tell you. They would say, look, you as a candidate thinks everybody's loving you, but the polls are telling us someone else. But Donald Trump has always been prescient. He's always been a visionary. He was even prescient about Uma Abedin's husband there, Anthony Weiner, which really I think ultimately brought them all down, or Hillary brought herself down, so to speak. But speaking of that, what do you think of Hillary coming out today and saying, FBI Director James Comey is the reason I lost the election? What do you think of that?
Look, Mr. Trump won. We know that. There's no reason to pick a fight with Hillary. But the one thing I'll say that since the election, that Mr. Trump has had a very good tone, I think, coming out of the campaign. I think he's been very focused on what he needs to do. Had a good meeting with the congressional leaders when he was up here on the Hill. We're looking forward, and that's really the approach that he's going to take. Because let's be honest, over this past 8 years, the country has grown more divided, not more unified. And I think what you're going to see is with President Trump, after he's sworn in on the 20th, that he is going to be that unifying figure. Are you going to be in the White House, Mr. Miller? That'll be up to the president.
All right. Thanks for being with us. Thanks for taking the time.
Thanks, Judge.
Are you tired?
I'm always tired.
All right. Thanks so much. And my next guest and I had quite a few battles throughout the campaign season over who we believe would be the next president. Take a look. You're never going to vote for Donald.
You're never going to vote for Hillary, but she's going to be your president.
We're going to be right there.
Coco,
I'm bringing you on the week after the election when Donald Trump wins. All right?
All right. All right. I'm going to bring me the hanky. I'll be crying.
Yeah? You'll be crying?
I'll be crying.
I'll be laughing.
I'll be crying and drunk.
Liberal radio show host Coco Sudeck joins me now. All right, Coco, you said you'd be crying and drunk. Are you drunk?
I am not drunk. I am hungover. My crying comes in fits and starts. Judge, let me tell you, I know how you feel. I felt that way in 2008. I felt that way in 2012. And I felt the way I feel today in 2004. And I do not want to rain on your parade. I want you to celebrate in this feeling because I know it feels good.
Oh, that's very nice of you, Coco. And you know what? I'm not going to rain on your tears either. But what I am going to ask you, Coco, is you were totally convinced that the woman, there was no way that she was going to lose. Why do you think she lost?
I think she didn't inspire enough people. Look, I don't actually think Donald Trump won this election as much as I think Hillary Clinton lost it. And I want to be really candid. I do think she is an honorable person. And I know that you don't believe it. I do. But I also think that she didn't inspire the people that Obama inspired. I think her campaign had a very, very bad strategy. I think she was very short-sighted. And I will tell you that I think my party,
Coco? Tell me what the strategy was.
Hang on. I got to say this. I think that my party, the Democratic Party, has failed in its mission over the last 25 years to be the party of the common man, to be the party that really stands up for the working man. And that is a function
now,
as
back
much
to my question.
of the
What was the strategy?
as anything else.
Back up. Coco, back up. What was her strategy? Her strategy was to trash Donald Trump. She didn't have a strategy.
And that was a terrible strategy because it didn't do enough about her. But look, I want to say something else.
There was nothing to say about her because she didn't have any accomplishments. No. Coco, we're going to have a nice chat tonight. I don't want to fight with you tonight.
Judge, I don't want to fight either. I want to say something, and I'm saying this from the bottom of my heart. Hillary Clinton's career in public life is over, okay? And we now have a new president, and I don't dispute that. He is our president. He will be our president. But I do want to say something, and this is really important.
Okay.
There are people who are not white, straight Christian males who are truly terrified for their safety right now because there are people who support Donald Trump who are going around and are terrorizing people. And these reports are coming out all the time.
Stop it. You know what, Coco?
And you as a supporter.
You know what? Donald Trump is not the president yet.
And you
as a supporter. I'm not saying it's Donald Trump to come
you
out
as a
and calm them
supporter
down. It's
of
up to
Donald
Hillary
Trump
Clinton to come out
and
calm
Donald
them
Trump
down.
owe an obligation to this country to say
Donald
something,
Trump
to
already said
say
what he
that
needed
we
to
need
say.
to be peaceful, and to say to your own people that we are all Americans and we deserve safety and
he
peace.
said that.
And you as a supporter owe it to this country to say it.
Election night, he said exactly that. He handled
he
it
needs
with
to say
complete
it
class
now.
and elegance.
People are being
President
terrorized
Barack
on the
Obama
streets.
has divided this
People are
country,
being-
Coco.
No.
People are being
Look,
what? Then
forget
they
it.
will
Barack
be
Obama is
prosecuted.
almost done. Barack
He's
Obama is
cooked.
almost done. Barack Obama is almost finished with his term. And what I'm telling you is,
Coco,
even if
let
you
me
don't
ask you a
believe
question.
it, there
Coco,
are people
I'm
who
gonna
are
ask you a question.
terrified
You know what, they're
of
terrified.
your supporters.
My supporters, Coco, let me ask you a
Donald
question.
Trump
I spent
supporters
30
and
years,
your supporters.
Coco,
And you
listen,
need to
stop,
denounce this
stop.
now.
Coco, you need to stop. I spent 30 years in law enforcement. If someone is hurting you, you go to the police, you get them prosecuted, you go to jail.
Yes,
stop
in a
blaming
perfect
Donald
world,
Trump.
that is the way you do it.
Donald Trump, stop,
There is a
stop.
leadership
There's not
problem
a
right
question
now.
on the floor, Coco. There is not
Donald
a question
Trump
on the floor.
needs to
My
denounce this
question is
now.
this. Barack Obama is the one who divided this country, and this election was a referendum on his policies, on his divisiveness, and what he has done to this country.
Let me answer that.
And that is why we are in this
Let me
mess.
answer that.
Answer it.
President Obama never stood up at a rally and said, hit that person, get him out of here. He never said that he wanted to build a wall and
you know what? We need to build a wall. Most
a whole group of people. He never said he wanted to keep Muslims out of the country. Donald Trump has done all of that.
We need
now,
to
Donald
vet
Trump
them.
is the president of the United States.
You know why? Because some Americans are having the necks cut off by Muslim jihadists. So get over it.
That's not an issue.
I thought we were
but
going to have
right
a
now,
nice
there
discussion.
are Americans that are terrified. Do you understand that, Judge?
Yeah,
there are
they
Americans
may be terrified.
that are being
Americans
terrorized
are
on the
terrified
streets.
too. And you know what? Here's the bottom line. You got a problem? Call the police. All right?
There are
Call
swastikas
Barack
being
Obama.
painted on dormitories. There are hijab. People are being threatened who are wearing
Thank
hijabs.
you very much. Thank you for being here tonight. Thank you, Coco Sudak. And next, Justice Goes to Hollywood. Two of Donald Trump's biggest celebrity supporters are standing by to talk about Coco. No, to talk about their reactions to election night and what they expect for a Trump presidency. Scott Baio and Stephen Baldwin are next. And later, I scoped out President-elect Donald Trump's new digs, the White House here in D.C. Justice rolls on in a moment. Welcome back to this special post-election edition of Justice live from D.C. Hillary Clinton believed her celebrity support from Jay-Z and Beyonce, to just name a few, would help boost her to the White House. This while Saturday Night Live relentlessly mocked Trump and his supporters in the week before the election. Take a look at this.
I'm the one who's got all the heavy hitters supporting me. I mean, I've got the cream of the crop. I've got Sarah Palin, I've got Chachi, and get this, I've even got the best Baldwin brother, Stephen Baldwin.
Well, it seems like President-elect Trump had the right guys behind him after all. Joining me now, actors and Trump supporters Stephen Baldwin and Scott Baio. All right, guys, thanks for being with me this evening. Scott, I'm going to start with you, but it's the same question. Now that you guys have basically come out of the closet, so to speak, do you think that more conservatives in D.C. would be willing to admit that they might support the president-elect, Scott?
More people in D.C.?
I'm saying in L.A.
Oh, I don't know. I don't know if there are really that many, but there are a lot of them still in the closet because they want to work. And I think right now with all this anger, which is just so unbelievable to me. I mean, 8 years ago, I wasn't crying and looking for a dog to hold. I wasn't looking for somebody with a pin on their shoulder that was a safety person. I sucked it up. We lost. But personally, if I don't ever work again, and I told you this before, Judge, and Donald Trump is now President-elect Donald Trump, I'm good.
I think,
so
Judge,
it's worth it. All right, Stephen, go ahead.
Absolutely worth it.
I think, Judge, that last interview, Coco lady, she better watch it or we'll open a new division of Homeland Security called Bayo, and we'll send Scotty Bayo over to her house, okay?
Well, you know, Coco and I consistently duke it out, and the good thing is she's never on set. Otherwise, we'd really duke it out. But, Stephen, let me ask you this. I mean, do you think that there is a price to pay in L.A. Or in New York, for that matter, for supporting Donald Trump?
Of course, absolutely. Scott Baio and I were talking earlier today, putting our thoughts together, and we've come up with an idea. The Two Fresh Princes of the White House. It's a new TV show starring Scott Baio and Steve Baldwin. We may need to be adopted by President Trump at this point. That's how bad the situation is. But yes and no. I think, to answer your first question, a lot of people who are Hollywood folks who voted for Trump inevitably will start coming out of the closet, so to speak. And Scott and I agree on one thing. We're two actors, been in the business 30 years, and our biggest driver and support for Mr. Trump has been the economy. Now everybody, Judge, is talking about what's he going to do? What's he going to do? I keep saying repeatedly, it's done, it's over, he's president. Let's do the right thing and stand behind him as best we can. Let's all these protesters, hopefully we'll be praying that all that's going to calm down. We have to support this president. And those people, even those protesters and those that didn't support Mr. Trump, will see the future. He is going to make great strides in the economy very quickly, and it's going to bless everybody.
You know, Scott, you brought up the issue of those. Go ahead, Scott.
I'll just add one more thing to what Stephen said, and I'll back it up with, just like Reagan. When everybody was afraid of Reagan, it's the same exact rhetoric. When the economy turns around and when the country gets strong again, that's when you're going to see all these people come out of the woodwork in Hollywood for Trump.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, look at the stock market already. But, Scott, what about, and I just want to stay with this for a minute, you know, you mentioned the dog therapy and all this other lunacy and the safe places, you know, on these college campuses and the screen therapy. And I just can't believe it with these wusses on campus, you know, that they need crayons, they need to delay their exams. I mean, do these kids really plan on showing up in the real world? But Scott, you know, shouldn't President Obama be coming out and telling people to chill out? I mean, we know from James O'Keefe and, you know, the videos that he came out with that it was the DNC and, you know, Hillary Clinton's campaign allegedly that was paying these protesters and, you know, and then it stopped and they're still out here. These people are paid professional antagonists.
Yeah, your last guest, I can't remember, Poppy? What was her name?
Coco.
Whatever. Coco. Okay. Coco is telling Donald Trump to come out and stop this. Donald Trump's not the president. Donald Trump is president-elect. He's got no power right now. The two people that should be stopping this are Obama and Hillary Clinton. That's it. Those are their people, and she's got the nerve to say that Donald Trump's people are bad people and are looking to cause violence?
Yep.
She is in an alternate universe.
Yes, they all were, but we're going to be nice tonight. Stephen Baldwin, 10 seconds. Who should be stopping this?
No question that President Obama should step forward, in my opinion, and just in his position, and the individual who specifically his job is to be caring for the well-being of the citizens of the United States. No question the president should step forward and try to create as much calm and peace and order as he can.
Send Sheriff Clark in there.
Yeah.
Send Sheriff Clark in.
Our friend Sheriff Clark. All right, Stephen Baldwin, Scott Baio, thanks for being with us and congratulations. And still ahead, I hit the street right outside the White House. And next, the campaign may be over, but the debate here in Washington between the right and the left never, ever really stops. My political panel standing by to talk about the Trump transition, as well as Hillary Clinton's new excuse for why she lost.
His job is to be caring for the well-being of the citizens of the United States.
Welcome back to Justice. We are live here in D.C., where you're looking live at the White House. In a few short months, President-elect Donald Trump will be moving in. Meanwhile, the Democratic Party in disarray days after their loss. My all-star political panel is here to break it all down. GOPAC Chairman David Avella and Democracy for America Communications Director Neil Soroka. All right, good evening, gentlemen. I want to start with Hillary Clinton's 30-minute conference call today, where she said that FBI Director Comey Comey's decision to send a letter to Congress about the inquiry, that email FBI investigation, thrust the controversy back into the public and prevented her from ending the campaign, as she says, on an optimistic note. I'll start with you, David. Is she kind of blaming someone else for her loss?
Well, of course she is. And in a couple weeks, Democrats are going to be talking about how she was a bad candidate and how the campaign was dysfunctional. And that's what happens in campaigns, right? There's division. There's everybody pointing fingers at one another. And that's what happens when you're on the losing side. And look, for Democrats, it is going to be a tough couple years.
All right, Neil, let me ask you this. I mean, isn't it kind of sour grapes for her, a couple of days after the election and say, Jim Comey made me lose this election?
Oh, listen, I think it was a combination of factors. I don't think the Comey letter helped very much. But the reality is that she was a flawed candidate from the beginning, and that's why millions of Americans supported an alternative like myself during the primary.
And it was indeed a primary that some alleged was rigged, given the superdelegates and, the Clinton, some would say, fix, or as your candidate, Bernie Sanders, says, was a rigged system as well.
Yeah, listen, I think the reason why we lost this past week was because the Democratic political establishment picked who the winner was before it even began. That was a flawed nominee. And ultimately, and probably most unfortunately, I think there were far more people who were comfortable with the bigotry and hate of Donald Trump than they were with Hillary Clinton.
Well, I'm not so sure that I would call it the bigotry and hate of Donald Trump. I mean, most Americans don't even think that way. So what do you say to that, Dave?
I guess it didn't even take 10 days. I guess we already heard it tonight. We're already hearing the flawed candidate. Look, Donald Trump won because he talked about making sure that we broke down every barrier to creating jobs. We put more money in people's pockets, whether that's through lower taxes or higher wages, and we're going to protect America. And that's
he certainly didn't win the majority of votes. He certainly didn't win the majority of votes.
Well, as you know, we elect our president by
600,000 votes down. He underperformed Mitt Romney.
Hold on, guys. The Constitution has something called the Electoral College. Let's not fight about that.
He's the winner, but he didn't win the hearts of the majority of the American people.
And that system is what our founding fathers required, and that's the end of it. Now let's move on.
He's the most reviled political figure to ever win the presidency.
All right, well then why didn't you win the House or the Senate if you're so great?
Why didn't we win the House or the Senate? Because not enough people came out to vote because we had a poor candidate. Next time we're going to do a heck of a lot better.
Maybe you didn't have enough House and Senate candidates that the Democrats liked either. You want to blame Donald Trump for everything?
Well,
I think he owes. There's a lot of responsibility on his shoulders.
Look,
for the way
even
this
the
campaign
Pope
was
came out against him. I mean, come on.
Well, you should ask yourself why that's the case.
Because he believes that we ought to have open borders, and Americans believe in a nation state and
because
nationalism.
The Pope is against hate, and that's what Donald Trump ran on.
By the way, I don't want to talk about the Pope, but now that we're on it, the Pope is the one who's more concerned about climate change and says it's deplorable that women don't make as much as men, whereas Hillary Clinton's own foundation, women didn't make as much as men. While Christians are being slaughtered in the Middle East, he's talking about how much women make in the United States. He ought to focus on his own flock.
Okay, Judge, if you want to run against the Pope, that's your prerogative. Yeah. I'm not going to.
Yeah. All right, let's talk about Neil. What do you want to talk about going forward? What do you think that the Democrats can do to correct the flaws in their party?
Listen, what the Democrats need to do is listen to the grassroots base of the party. We're going to set the tone going forward, and I think I'm frankly really happy that we're going to have an open battle for who's going to lead the Democratic Party going forward, because at the end of the day, the reason why we lost was because 5 million people didn't show up at the polls for Hillary Clinton that showed up for Barack Obama. If we fix that problem, if we actually support the grassroots base of the party, I think we're going to be in hand for a lot of wins in the years to come.
Go ahead, David.
Well, that doesn't account for the voters who voted twice for President Obama who cast their vote for Donald Trump this election. And the best thing for the Democrats is the fact that President Obama can't endorse anyone any longer. His track record is abysmal. And Republicans have gained every year in offices across the country every time he's endorsed someone or we've been running against his failed policies. But that's the elections. Now it's time for Republicans to start delivering. We have the White House, both majorities in Congress. We have 34 of 50 governors, and we have 69 of 99 state legislative majorities. Republicans have been working for this for years, and now it's our time to deliver.
Neil, what David says is correct. In 2010, 2014, and 2016, where Obama really campaigned for his legacy, I mean, he lost overwhelmingly.
Listen, that is one of the stains on Obama's legacy, unfortunately, is the losses that Democrats have suffered down ticket because of him. And it's something that we've got to figure out going forward. And I think the way you do that is by listening to the grassroots base of the party, not party hacks and insiders that distorted this primary competition and have, frankly, rejected the views of the base of the party. That's not the way to go.
Right. Neil Soroka, thanks for being with us. David Avella, thanks for being with us also. Protests across the country crying on college campuses and students being offered the option to skip exams, all because a new president was elected fair and square through the democratic process. Really? Founder of Turning Point USA and author of Time for a Turning Point, Charlie Kirk joins me now with reaction. All right, good evening, Charlie. You're a young guy. What is going on on college campuses?
Absolute insanity. I have two words: grow up. But look, this has been happening over the last couple of years. Professors, administrators have been creating a climate on campus where, quite frankly, it's the weakening of America. I was reading some of this stuff. They have therapy dogs for students that are so shocked by the election results, a cry-in. In fact, professors are encouraging students, they're giving them credit to go out and protest the atrocity that is the election of Donald Trump. And look, when will the left realize this is large in part why Trump won? It is a reaction to this politically correct weakening of America, and they're just reinforcing this. It is remarkable. However, not all young people feel this way. It's not a majority. It is a vocal minority.
Well, you know, when you say the politically correct weakening of America, college campuses have always been a place for liberal-leaning, somewhat leftist teaching. But I mean, and I went to school, I mean, kids, but this is over the top. And yeah, I think the Democratic Party has learned from this election, if nothing else, that the movement towards socialism does not bode well for them. And I would think at the same time, as the economy gets better, that young people and millennials included will realize, even watching the Dow, that jobs are going to be better. I mean, there are going to be more of them with Donald Trump in the White House.
That's right. And one of the stories of this election that really needs to be told more is, believe it or not, Donald Trump won college-age voters in the state of Wisconsin. Let me say that again. In the state of Wisconsin, with University of Wisconsin-Madison, one of the most liberal schools in America, Donald Trump won college-age voters 45% to 43% due to exit polls showed. Look, young people, I think, could be won over a lot more easier than the media likes to think, or even pop culture. They want jobs. They want opportunity. They don't trust the government. And Donald Trump's movement was essentially saying to the political elite, things are not going to stay the same. And Hillary Clinton, if she wants to know why she lost in these key battleground states, it's quite frankly because she was not able to replicate the numbers in the college voting areas that Barack Obama was able to do. And this whole safe space microaggression movement, a retaliation of that, is large part, in fact, why Donald Trump did so well. So this whole thing that's happening here is the reason why Donald Trump won. And I think it's actually a good thing that young people, a lot more than what was expected, stood up